Hey guys, Thomas the Genie here, aka Mustached. I'm here to review the movie The Nun 2. And if you've been enjoying this full movie review, then please feel free to like, comment, and subscribe. Also make sure to check out those links in the description. One, I drove over to my petition to help out smaller YouTubers. Second and third, to my Patreon and PayPal, where you can help support me and my channel directly. And fourth, to my Discord server, we join, collab, and chill and do all that cool stuff. And showing will be reminded at the end of the review. Now, this is another movie that I was late on. I had heard about this. I'd seen The Nun Part 1, and I was like a little bit curious. I was like, why they would continue to do this movie in a Part 2. I felt like they covered everything in The Nun, as far as I was concerned. But of course, with the success of this movie and them wanting to do more of their franchise nonsense in horror movies, I'm not that surprised either. I will say that the trailer for this one outright lies. There's this scene in the trailer where you see a bunch of nuns converge on the main character that doesn't happen anywhere in this movie, and that was clearly in the trailer. So there are lies in the trailer. I will point that out right out of the way. Again, I'm a little bit late on this one, but I got to it eventually. So I digress. We're going to start right now with the whole plot, story, and character. And with it being a horror movie, and more so a sequel to one as well, if you've been a part of my channel for long, you know that I have a penchant for criticizing horror movies a lot. Especially the more current ones that come out. And this is no exception, so that should tell you where I lean towards this movie right out of the gate as a little hint. So we begin this movie in terms of date in 1956 in France. And we see, now I forget what they're called, but like the pastor's, I guess, worker? I don't know what they are. Like, what are it's like a kid, though, they used to do this in my church, too, and I still don't know what they're called. It's been a while. They, like, carry the stuff for the person who like runs the church, and I have no clue what they're called in terms of this. So if anyone knows in the comments, let me know, because I've always been kind of a little bit curious about that. As someone who used to do it, or used to see it myself, at the very most. Anyway, we cut to after the sermon where they give the blood of Christ, which is a typical sermon. That's something I'm definitely used to, in the past at least. The boy sees a shadow and kicks a ball down toward it, but we start to see as he draws or hears something, he goes to warn the main priest. And then they begin to see water, or wine rather, being heated up or something along those lines. The priest is off-put, seeing and wanting to know who is behind this. And then he is like pulled away and abruptly lifted into the air and is caught aflame instantly. Now, when it cuts to a truck, I assume that this is modern day or some point later. They don't give a date for this, so I'm not sure if this is meant to be a prequel or it is a sequel, because they mention the events of the first movie, so I'm not sure like when this takes place again. In terms of a date, it's really hard to tell for this movie, but I digress. So anyways, we cut to Irene, who was in the first movie, talking with Deborah, who is this new nun in the church. And Irene goes on, who I guess they're just sort of casual friends or just nun partners, I guess. Talks about not having her mom around. And Deborah talks about her past and how during whatever war this vicinity is having, France in 1956. If this is like still in the same time frame, I'm not too familiar with France's wars, so apologies on my lack of history on France. But I digress. She says how she was brought here as a result of that, and how her brothers were drafted into the war, whatever war that was. So we cut to the nuns in a sort of semicircle or full circle, listening to like the main one's story about how there's about a demon going around killing, and sort of even going over the first movie and how it looks like a nun. Then we cut to, and for a bit I was curious as to why this sort of happened, but we cut to these three young girls in the school placing these bugs into a vent. Now, we kind of follow the events of this school quite a hefty bit, and at first I was very confused, but as the movie progresses, I'll explain it now, is that the nun is after this MacGuffin, which are these eyes that happen to be placed in this school due to some ancestral nonsense of the god stuff. And the eyes are somewhere there, and the nun is currently using Maurice as a possessed spectrum of sorts to wander the halls, as it were. And he's not always like that, but when he's possessed, you can clearly tell. So we see him, Maurice, who is also in the previous movie, walk the halls, and we have one of the main girls of the school named Sophie. Her mom is the teacher, and she seems to look up to Maurice perhaps as a father figure or potential love interest for her mom. Kind of like that vibe of like daughters, like she could tell that mom is interested, though I don't think they played off that well. I know at the end they clearly designated that role with how the ending implies it, but they don't really play it up all that well in the entire movie, quite frankly. Anyway, we see a delivery person heading towards a building nearby, and she begins hearing some noises in the distance and investigates, and this is the first time we see the nun kill somebody. So kill number one. We have no clue who this woman is. She was just some transporter of goods and services, so okay. Anyway, we now move on to her. We cut to Maurice having a nightmare, or Irene having a nightmare of Maurice with what I described in my notes as vamp face. She begins to pray, and then she is like called upon by this higher up priest, and it's shown that these killings have been been coming back. Sorry for the cut. Anyways, as I was saying about vamp face, this marks our little history section where they go over with Irene about essentially how she is needed once again, and she at first is like no, But they're like, we don't really have any other options. And Deborah goes to join her, essentially. And Deborah, wanting to convince her that she needs to be better prepared for this, she says that you need to up your faith skills, essentially. Anyway, we cut to Maurice checking in some rooms, and one of them is locked. And we see later on that the three bully characters bully Sophie into the room and go to a game where she's supposed to look at something, and they go to the off-limits area, explain how the demon game works, and lock her inside after the fact. So she sees a figure, but Maurice, while still not possessed, just goes to rescue her. So we go to somewhere else in France. Tarascon, I believe, is the name of the area, where Irene and Deborah go. And she has gotten these visions of the boy, and she's investigating, and she begins to talk about her talk with Maurice, or her experience in the end of the first movie. But I digress. We learn more about the dying boy that got locked up. And she looks back. Oh, sorry. We cut back to the school where Sophie's checking in on Maurice, and he's like looking up at something or other. Meanwhile, her mom, quote-unquote, calls her away. She begins to follow, sees the nun, and then runs away. After seeing her real mom. So the nun can play some dirty tricks. Meanwhile, Irene spots the boy from the beginning named Jacques, but loses him in the process of trying to find him. We get a weird sequence where she ends up in this book rack area, and then the pages begin to flip, all to form the nun. The nun is formed. It grabs her after all of that sequence. And we learn about how some priest stabbed someone in the eyes, mentioning that. And this is after the fact. Deborah eventually gets to her. Then the principal sees Maurice at night and pulls him out of his state, as it were. Anyway, the door hinges open, and she heads outside, or inside, and she gets messed with a bit. The principal, I think this is, hearing voices, and the nun attacks using the dead boy, Cedric. And is killed in this poorly lit room. And that's her second kill in the entire movie. So we learn again how the nun wants the relic, the eyes, aka. That is reinforced here. And the reinforcement of she is using Maurice to look, based on Irene's knowledge of these updates that have, I guess, after being grabbed, she gets this intel somehow. After getting some rosary, which I guess is supposed to help, the teacher begins to investigate the room and sees that the principal is dead, so she goes and gets her collected up, or by other people. Meanwhile, Maurice heads back for Sophie, and he spots her, and they have a little sit and talk. Meanwhile, the nuns get in the taxi, Irene and Deborah, and we go to St. Lucie. And we learn more about this demon as apparently it used to be a fallen angel, or archangel is another frame of word they use sometimes in religion, I guess. So yes, that is a thing. And again, it is now confirmed by him that the location of the eyes are at the boarding school, so that's when Irene and Deborah start to head their way over there. But she gives Deborah the truth about how her mom had these eyes as well, and was taken away from being insane for seeing things. Speaking over our little mini flirt scene, we have the mom and slash teacher dancing with Maurice, and all suggested by Sophie, of course, as I implied earlier. This is like the only scene that implies like they're having like a little like potential romantic thing before he falls over, and you see the upside down cross, and he grabs them both after, being possessed, and the two nuns arrive, of course, and he gets fully taken over at this point. So Deborah knocks him out, and they begin to investigate the goat room. A check where the red line was pointing to, we saw the earlier setup in the movie, and Maurice only begins to wake back up, and also simultaneously the goat is gone from the little picture frame. Meanwhile, one of the girls is seemingly now aimlessly looking around after hearing some noises, finds Deborah, and they spot a goat demon in actuality, I guess is what this is supposed to be. You never really get a good look at it, clearly. So yeah, the girls all are with Deborah now, and the rest of the group are elsewhere now. So possessed, Maurice attacks Irene. She's separate. Deborah moves with the other girls, and they spot, one of them spots the dead principal. P.S. That's a reminder that there have only been 2 deaths in this entire movie, and, well, 3 technically, I suppose. And one girl is almost grabbed and pulled in, but she's pulled away instead, so she lives. And they all flee. Sophie goes to her hiding spot, where possessed Maurice is heading. And she, with her special eyes, gets a little, glimpse of, the truth of being able to hurt Maurice in a way that hurts the nun, I guess, too. But that doesn't last too long as, Maurice grabs her. But she kicks him down, and Irene finds her instead, and Irene uses the eyes on Maurice. And after faking his death, she reattaches the eyes, and the demon dog continues to chase, or goat, whatever it is, chasing the girls. All the while, Sophie tries to run away and is stopped at every corner. Deborah is grabbed very briefly. Irene is pulled up and burned from the ground up, or like from the leg area primarily, and she is dropped due to having visions, which is just considered a miracle. I don't know. But she begins to pray with Deborah. The wine bursts out as they begin to pray together. They amen it up, and the wine spilleth aforth as it causes the nun to burn, and the nun has been released from Maurice, so he is able to reunite with Sophie and the mom, while the two nuns celebrate and have their very said farewells, and that's about that. 3 deaths and not a lot of horror, quite frankly, and not a lot of character either. Barely a lot going on here. I think the script definitely needed a bit of a rework here. Tightening up just why this even needed to be. It seems to be the premise here, more so. I mean, after the trailer lied, I can only say so much. You know, I guess I don't mind it taking place in a school, like, portionally. But, I mean, I don't know, like, build the characters up a little bit more than making some of them bullies and then having all of them survive. Like, come on, I just, not even too long ago, was reviewing, that, vampire movie, and they weren't afraid to kill a kid. And this movie wasn't either, but then all of a sudden it's like, well, now we can't do any more than one, I guess. It's like, why? God damn it. And it's like, it's the worst of both worlds. You don't get any of the juicy kills, while also simultaneously not having any of the great character work that you would need for me to be rewarded for, you know, this being a horror movie. You would suspect both of those things to be present and true for me to, you know, be pleasantly surprised, but here we are instead. We got this. So I'm going to give this movie a 3 out of 10. I severely think that it misses a lot of the marks here, a lot of flaws. Definitely need to be a lot reworked a lot here. And I think having a more, I mean, I don't have an issue with a prayer being the thing, you know, since this deals with religion. I'm not even against that, but, like, I don't know. It feels like some of the end stuff just sort of kind of still happens, and it's, like, very disconfigured in its presentation still. I'm not sure how I'd necessarily fix that, per se, right off the bat. Maybe removing the burning section. I feel like the nun's powers may be too vague if she can do something like that and chooses to not do it sometimes, and other times she doesn't do it, and so on and so forth. Maybe something like that. Yeah, I think that something like along those lines would like help ground the movie a little bit, despite it being, you know, a demon. Because, like, it's like, oh, you could burn somebody. Like, why didn't you do that way more often? I mean, clearly you did it to the guy at the beginning of the movie, so you clearly had no issue doing it there. So, I don't know. Yeah, I think that whole opening, too, now that I'm thinking about it, now I'm backtracking to that sequence, I'm like, why did she only do that then, and then do that now, at the end of the movie? And still fail, by the way, because of the whole prayer thing. So, I don't know, I think the ability to burn people was probably a little bit too outside of what I would suspect would be in this demon's wheelhouse. There's no, like, setup that the demon would be able to do that. They just sort of, it's just sort of something it can do, rather than, again, it being set up like, when we're learning about what this demon is, this fallen angel is, maybe explaining it there, maybe like, okay, so that's why it can burn people. I don't know, something to like suspend the disbelief a little bit more rather than it just happening. That might be a little bit warranted. I don't know. There's a few directions this type of movie could have went in, but I digress. That's my review of The Nun 2, and if you ended up enjoying it, then please feel free to like, comment, and subscribe. Also, make sure to check out those links in the description. Want to head over to my petition to help out smaller YouTubers, so get a third to my Patreon and PayPal, where you can help support me and my channel directly, and fourth to my Discord server you can join, collab and chill and do all that cool stuff. And until next time, everyone, bye-bye.